Happy Thursday. So earlier this week, I sent out an email saying, ask me anything, pick my brain. I've been taking notes on clearly this very formal and official notepad of your questions, and I'm gonna just go. So some of you I emailed right back and I shared like a link to a blog post or something like that. Some of them are just gonna be easier to talk through. So I'm starting with the first questions that I got, and I'm gonna run through them until I hear a child screaming at me. So we're on a little bit of a time crunch. It's fine. The first question was, how do you teach vocabulary, or how do you like practice and reinforce vocabulary? First, I'm going to send you to, I have a YouTube video and a blog post with 20 vocabulary games, but my personal favorite is to like narrow down your list and then come up with a story that uses that vocabulary. Or, right, if you have a really big list and it's really hard for you to narrow it down, to purposefully plan in the options as you're doing like a storytelling or story asking with your students, and you say, oh, do they like to play basketball or soccer? And then they're, getting that reinforcement in there, but really it's going to be one answer in the story. And then later on, as you do version B or version C of the story, you can tweak those to fill in the blanks with different vocabulary, right, to give them more exposure. Can you do a virtual field trip as a class? Yes, you can. I have never done it though, because I've always been in a one-to-one environment, so all of my students have always had something.
Can I come in here?
No, thank you. So you would just project the interactive map on your smartboard or projector, and you would navigate it together. So like you could ask students which one to click on, or you could just click on it, watch the thing together, read the thing together. If you were doing this, I would personally hand out probably do the graphic organizer as you're going through it as a class, and then as a follow-up afterwards, give them the, comprehension questions, and they can do that afterwards. And you can leave it up for them to come back to and explore a little bit more, but just that way you have something to keep them engaged and with you while you're doing the thing as a whole class. Classroom management. When you have a big class or a rowdy class, or you're trying to do CI strategies and they are just, okay, here's the thing. If they can't handle the activity, you don't have to do it, right? Like you maybe had the super fun CI activity ready to go, but CI doesn't have to be fun. Like, yes, comprehensible, engaging, but it doesn't have to feel like a game, because sometimes I think our students get to this concept of like, oh, this class is so fun, it's not real, I don't have to do things, and that's not a fun road to go down. So consider doing other things that feel like school, and then going back to those other activities that we might normally do far more often. But if that particular class can't handle it, right, it becomes more of a sprinkle in rather than this is my whole thing. I have a lot more videos on classroom management, so if you want to hear more about classroom management, I would head to that playlist on my YouTube channel. But in general, right, you can change your activities to be a little bit more serious, and remember that the fun activities can be something that's sprinkled in once they show you they can handle it. If you are a department of one, where do you find others to connect with? Here. Hi. Social media is great for this. This is like one of the best things about the internet. So Instagram, obviously. Facebook groups are a really great place for this. And even honestly, I've started to find more things on YouTube and like the scrolly video feeds. So that would be a great option too. I do have a blog post where I link some of my favorite Facebook groups. I almost said my favorite blog post. So if you want that, it's called Spanish Teachers on Social Media, and that would be a great option if you're trying to just get started. Obviously, if you're not on that particular social media channel, just pick a different one, because we're everywhere. So go dig through. There's even Reddit threads of us. Isn't that amazing? Okay. Standard-based grading assignments or tests. How do you get started with it? What does that look like? The thing is, every school, everyone that I've ever talked to about standards-based grading, and every district I've ever been that's tackled standards-based grading is doing this differently, which is silly because you'd think that it'd be kind of... So, without knowing what your school is telling you or what your school wants or anything like that, I would take a look in some of those Facebook groups like I asked and say, hey, my school wants me to do this and they're asking for this. and then see what you get, because lots of people are already experimenting with this, so that would be helpful. Another thing is, don't be afraid to turn to your admin and say, what does this look like, right? You're getting this directive that says, we need you to do this thing. Okay, give me an example. Give me the resources, give me the support. Like, they can bring in people to help you with that. They can bring in people to support you with that. Ask for that, because they shouldn't be giving you the, right? It's the same thing. You're not going to give your students a test and say, okay, go, and not tell them what it is they're going. So you have to make sure that you're understanding those expectations and that those are modeled. What do you do if you have a super quiet class? Well, if you're me, you just talk the whole time. I don't do well with silence. You probably could guess if you know me well at all. But for real, if you have a super quiet class, give them different ways to show that they're engaged without requiring them to talk, right? It can be really simple. It can be like this hand or that hand, or one finger or two fingers. It can be a whiteboard writing activity, show the whiteboard, right? It's going to depend on the students and their level of engagement and what you're seeing, but give them chances to interact in different ways. Like walking around the room quietly and putting a sticky note up on something might be a better win than writing on a whiteboard and holding it up. Try some of those different strategies and see, okay? And then also consider a super quiet class. I don't know if it's a big class or a small class, but consider putting them in different groups, different people, kind of mixing up the activities, maybe even reducing the, how do I say this? I want like stations where you would separate them into groups and they'd be working with a smaller group. That might help them with that effective filter if they're, feeling overwhelmed, that sort of thing. How do you give them reading motivation? How do you get them to read? I feel like so many teachers have asked that forever. The number one thing I have found is getting them something that they want to read, which I know sounds silly and like circular, but giving them a variety of book options that interest them and make them want to open it up and check it out is a great place to start. So like getting to know, getting to know what they're interested in and what they like, and also an appropriate level for them so that they don't open it and just go, and then, that is such a good open door. Hopefully this is fine. My phone just told me it's dying. So hopefully we're still here. It's fine. Oh, how to lower the effective filter. This actually, to me, kind of goes back to the super quiet class question. So giving them different ways to respond, giving them smaller groups to respond in, working with smaller one-on-one settings. The other thing I would add with the lowering the effective filter is scaffold way more than you ever think you need to. Like spoon feeding, I think, is a word that people would maybe use for this. If somebody has just an incredibly high effective filter, give them a series of questions where all they have to do is say no, right? Like all they have to do is say no. And as they're saying no over and over again, right? That's like a pretty familiar word. My 1-year-old says no all the time. So that's something that's going to kind of ease them into things. Also, I think about like my special person interview slides are super scaffolded, and I will like read them the answers and then show them the options and go to that, right? So just giving them all of the support you could possibly give them helps a lot. And it's going to feel like overkill on your part, but it won't be. How do you keep students in the target language? Hey, also scaffolding. I feel really strongly about scaffolding, obviously. I love putting up visual supports for that, but also just like in my slides, I love to put just like tons and tons and tons of support for them, because if they're not trying to reach out of bounds and they have those supports, they're more likely to stay in the target language. Also, just talking to them, like if you see me talk about the 90% time in the target language goal and talking to students about that, depending on the age of the students, right, you word this differently, but just communicating, like, this is a goal we have, let's do it. And then you can try different methods. Like I've done we're setting a timer for 8 minutes, and if we spend the entire 8 minutes in Spanish, we're celebrating when we get a point, and we're trying to, get more of those. But just, again, really, really scaffolding it for them, keeping the activities in bounds, and then circulating constantly if they're doing, like, small group or partner activities. So that way, if you hear them, like, getting off, we're back, okay? What do you do with second graders who think that they are like above the little childish things, but they are kids and they don't want to do like the little sing-songy activities, but they're not really old enough for some of those bigger activities. So first off, I don't work with elementary students. I have several people that I always send people to if you have questions about elementary. Mrs. Caballo's Spanish class is her handle. Fun for Spanish teachers. Profe Valentina, Senora Kennedy, although Senora Kennedy's in middle school this year, but her feed's full of really good information. So those are my like usual go-to recommendations for elementary questions. But otherwise, like, can you tweak just like the presentation of the same materials so it doesn't feel childish, right? Which sounds silly, but numbers and countries don't have to feel like a little kid thing. It could feel a lot more adult, especially if you just change the presentation of the information. Okay, last question that I have is the department wants to do CI, but your department or your district says you have to write your own curriculum. You can't buy a curriculum. You can't get pieces of a curriculum. What do you do? And your department's pretty much on board that they want to do this. I have never been able to make my own like whole curriculum. I've always worked with a team that's had like, this is the textbook that we're using, this is that. But if I had my way, what I would do is I would pick novels for different points of the year, probably like 4 novels, one for each quarter, and base the entirety of my curriculum around those novels. So every year of Spanish would have different readings that they would do. And leading up to it, during it, after it, would be kind of prepping them for the novel, building into the novel, right? The teacher's guides are awesome, but there's also things you could do to like explore the country, explore the culture, like whole thing around that. And then also daily start of class routines, talk about these all the time, and daily routines, so like Musica Miércoles, special person interviews, those sorts of things. I would build those 2 things every day. And then I would go back through the calendar again and say, okay, if we're doing this unit here, this is our novel, well, hey, this celebration is happening here. Level 1 is going to talk about this celebration. Level 2 is not going to talk about the same celebrations that level 1 did. So let's look at the calendar again and say, what are we missing? And kind of fill in those gaps there. Then you look at your remaining time and you look at like the spaces that they might have and say, okay, maybe there's song units that you want to do, or you want to plan a movie talk unit, or right, that's where I would then go back in and fill in the like week-long gaps that you might have here or there. And it's going to take time, but if you're part of a department, you can work together to share that. And I definitely recommend grabbing the teacher's guides for those novels because they're super great. So I hope that helps. If you guys have any questions, feel free to just drop me a comment or let me know. And my email inbox is always open. Please use your personal email address when you email me though, because it always makes me really sad when I write an email back and then I get a district blocked your email response, because then I think you think that I didn't hear you or answer you. And I did, but your district said no. So use your personal email. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.